We are the Bioscience Dragons. This is me, Ethan Casares, Miguel, Jorge, Ivan, and Julian. We are at a level 1 concept, and yeah.
So our concept was a flight stick. We chose to buy the Logitech Extreme 3D Pro because we found it at Goodwill and it was fairly cheap. And we basically broke it down and kept the core components such as the two PCBs and the bottom half of the flight stick as you can see on the right. And then we designed and custom made different parts to better suit Matthew's needs. And the interesting thing about the flight stick as our platform is that it's really easy to integrate different things and have it communicate with the computer easily. Rather than having to go to like an Arduino or different things, we just connect this into the computer, and any inputs that we decide to change, the computer will understand. And we use a software called Keysticks to change the flight stick's inputs into like keyboard inputs. So on these two separate PCBs, we can realistically solder any kind of switch that we want, and so that's one thing that we could explore and solder different switches to. And overall, it's just a really easy platform, and as long as you can design it, you can do whatever you want.
So, for our hardware design, we understand that not everybody can play video games. Controllers aren't really that accessible, since we have to consider controllers from Xbox, or PlayStation, or a keyboard. So, we started with the flight stick controller. A flight stick controller is basically a flight stick, the ones that pilots use, but with inputs. Now, not everybody who isn't a pilot knows what a flight stick is, so just think of one of the original Atari controllers, one of the old ones with the base, the stick on top, and the button on top. We use the flight stick because it's more of its descendant, really, and it's much more advanced, since it has way more inputs than the Atari controller, and it can connect to basically anything on PC. So, to start off, we disassembled the original controller and made models on CAD to understand it in 3D as well as 2D. So, using this model, we can see what we can take and what we can add in order to fix and improve upon the original design of the old stick. With this model, it's much easier to plan out our design, so we don't have to waste resources on making new prototypes and waste less time on seeing what can fit. So, we're hoping that we can decrease the use of materials and increase efficiency. However, even though we are making new parts, we're using old and new to increase efficiency. The old controller is serviceable, but we understand that not everybody can play controllers. So, we're hoping that we can gather a new audience of gamers, ones that couldn't play, on controllers or keyboards.
For the concept of the game, when we first started, we were thinking of using Minecraft, but we didn't know how we would change the characters and the game to a superhero theme, so we changed to Doom. After thinking about Doom, we saw that we wouldn't have finished it in time, changing all the characters and how the game would work. So we decided on Run 3, but instead we're gonna title it Hulk 1 for superhero. Hulk 1 would be similar to Run 3, but we plan on changing the character to the Hulk, and he has to avoid falling into train tracks instead of falling into outer space. And also maybe changing the tiles where he has to run to concrete or something similar like that.
Materials we used were a flight stick controller that we bought for $8.49 to use as the base of our controller. We used a 3D printer to create pieces and extra parts that we needed for the controller. We used a soldering iron. We also used suction cups to place at the bottom of the controller so they could stick to a flat surface and not move around while someone is using the control. We used buttons from a computer mouse, and programs we used were Linux to program the controller and also Scratch to program the game.
So for our meetings, we would try to actually minimize the amount of meetings we had to maximize the amount of work and progress we could get done. On the first meeting, we met up, we talked about any ideas, concepts we had together, but we had the idea of doing the Hulk game, as you saw before, and we looked more and we saw many groups were doing games, so we all together came up to the idea of doing the flight stick. We all researched and looked around. Between the 22nd and the 26th of October, we got a flight stick, and one person was working on it while the rest of us were looking up ways to mod it and mess with the buttons and soldering and everything that we could do. On the 28th, we met up so we could talk and formalize a presentation. And on the 3rd, it was pretty much just a time where we came up together and finalized our ideas and thoughts, and if anybody wanted to say anything else, then we did. But everything came out good and well. I think our progress was good.